So this is a pretty amazing opportunity for us. At LINQTO, what we do is we acquire pre-IPO shares, put it on our platform. These are unicorn companies that we allow other accredited investors to partake in and participate. It's all about DePri, which is deprivatization of access to unicorn companies that we have never seen before. So this is what we do. It's democratizing access. We're separating Wall Street from Main Street. That's what we want to do, give you all access to pre-IPO companies. And so it's a great pleasure to introduce Linda today. And we could spend an hour here, but Linda Jenkinson and I have had a brief conversation, and she covers many, many, many topics. I'll briefly introduce her, and then you can talk a little bit more about what you do. It's, as Jordan said, the first woman to take a company public on the NASDAQ at a very tender age. We won't talk about that, but very successful. But in that journey, I have to mention she also works with UNICEF and is on the board there to support not-for-profit causes and initiatives. But as well as coaching and creating $1 billion mindset, and also working with the Uplift Institute. If you would, for us, Linda, go through a little bit about your journey and what you've done.
Well, I'm from New Zealand, which is the accent, and New Zealanders, if you know anything about them, are incredibly competitive. And my father was a New Zealand judo champion, invited to the Olympics, and I can ride a horse, that's about it. And so I decided when I was 15 years old that the only way I was gonna win was to build bigger companies than my father did. And between the age of 10 and 20, he built 15 $2 million companies. So I headed off on a quest, and that quest has taken me to basically, I was one of the first women to do computer science, I was the first woman in Pricewaterhouse hired in the training program. The reason for that is because I was smarter than the guys and I could outdrink them, which in the New Zealander culture is incredibly important. I went on from there. One day I met this American called Greg Kidd. The big strategy firms came in to privatise New Zealand, and I don't ever met an American with a Hawaiian shirt on before that and a camera getting off a bus. And this guy goes, wow, I had, from a poker game, won most of their money and invested it in real estate in the first 3 weeks they hit New Zealand. And he said to me, well, you seem to be pretty good at business, so I've got a few ideas, so why don't we start a $1 billion business? And this was more than 30 years ago, which I didn't even really know what a billion was, I don't think. So we had a vision, a dream, which we developed in Wellington, New Zealand, and 7 years later we listed on the NASDAQ, and I only knew a few years ago that I was the first woman founder, because it's just what you do. And we built that into got it to $250 million in revenue, 6,500 employees in 4 countries. I had a terrible car accident and decided, though, that really didn't enjoy running a bigger company, and so started again and had 2 kids, started 2 more companies, which I sold for hundreds of millions of dollars, and started to give back. So built a for-profit, non-profit, one of the first ones in Senegal in Africa, as well as worked with the Red Cross. So that was my next decade. I also made partner and quit the same day to list. So, a few little stories like that. And then the last few years, I've taken a 4-year sabbatical, and I've been now chairing public company boards. I really believe in breaking the glass ceiling, and I've thrashed it repeatedly by being, one of the first woman partners, one of the first, the first woman to list. I was one of the only women on the NASDAQ at the time. There were only a few of us. And then now, there's only like 30 chairs. There's more CEOs called John than women CEOs in the top companies in America. And so really I've got a real view of how you disrupt boards to sort of change the world, and that's what I'm up to now, as well as started the Level Up Institute, which is about only 0.1% of public companies ever listed had a woman CEO. So I want to change that, and so I'm really working to bring diverse founders through in a transformative way with Level Up. So I'm wildly passionate, I love making a difference, and I love living life, and I reckon I won the bet with my dad.
Yeah. Yes, your dad and the rest of the family must be very proud, as we all are, breaking the ceilings. We've had a lot of conversations over the last 3 or 4 days about that ceiling, even though we don't talk about it so much. There is one. And actually, perhaps not even a ceiling. I think it's a glass box that a lot of women are in. And we just have to change that. So appreciate the work that you do there. Did you mention that Greg was one of your first investors?
No, Greg was my co-founder. So I met Greg Kidd in Wellington. So what happened was Booz Allen was brought over to help restructure the New Zealand banking industry, and Price Waterhouse was the lead accounting firm, and the big banks called up Price Waterhouse and said, there's all these Americans and we don't know what to do with them. Could you send someone to sort them out? And so he's the one who I discovered. He had a very big expense account and he liked to play poker.
Well, we didn't realize what a big deal Greg Kidd was until he invested in our company. And as soon as that happened, I mean, things changed for us, sort of a magic touch here. But if you're going to receive an email from him, if you receive more than one line, it's not good. So if you're going to receive an email, make sure it's only one line. Good job, not so good, learn more, that sort of thing. But what we've seen here, Linda, and I want to touch on a little bit with the short time that we have. As you know, we look at companies that are in hyper growth, and that's the companies we bring on our platform. And what we've noticed is that there is a change of the culture, or there needs to be a change in culture management and how they execute on going from seed stage to stage A, B, C, D, and E, and then hyper growth into public companies. This audience is either raising their first round, second round, or third round. What do the founders need to know as they continue to raise funds and grow their companies? What are the most important 3 points that they should know?
It's interesting, and typically it takes about 3 companies to be a success, or you need to work closely with CEOs of growth companies, because the challenge is, and I call it sort of the egg, and I'm from New Zealand, and a farm, right? Egg, chicken, and farm, right? You've got to come up with your thing, and then you've got to figure out how to reproduce it. That's the chicken. And then the farm, you've got to grow it, and then you go from there. I think you get the grift. And I think part of the challenge is that you put your DNA into your chicken and into your egg, and sometimes you don't realize until you get to the farm how critical that was. And so that's one of the reasons why serial entrepreneurs understand that. And so with my Level Up program, I've been codifying what that DNA is and what's critical. And because basically what often happens is so for example, I never understood, and I think it's quite understood now, but how important culture is for scaling, and that if you don't insert the culture explicitly in the first 10 employees, you just about never get it back. Critical. And it's sort of like everyone, poo-poo, soft stuff, values. It's not a cascade. To me, it's a circle where the DNA and the values are in the middle, and the vision. Do you really understand, or can you envision what that looks like? Can you quantify it so you can understand the multiple strategies to get there, and then what are you going to do in the next 90 days? That's really all you have to do to make it work. But it's it's a fluid, dynamic model where traditionally people are taught a very static model. And, I always say, you give me a company, I can make it work. But the key thing there is the word it. I evolve the it until it works. And what does that look like?
So when should we fry the egg?
What does that mean?
So if the DNA is in the egg and we've got the chicken and we're identifying co-founders, investors, when do we jettison those guys out? What are the telltale signs?
Well, frying the egg means that you failed because, it's because the egg isn't reproducing with the chicken.
Yeah. So taking the failure, what we want to do is identify to make quick decisions.
That's why, to me, it's all about making decisions, right? So it's about everything is in a 90-day cycle while you're checking in with your, Greg and I always called it global domination. I did play Dungeons and Dragons when I was at uni, and it was all about imagining what that world was like. We always used analogies like the Borg and, things from the sci-fi world, but then you're actually having to build it at the same time. And so a lot of entrepreneurs are thinking about things. I sort of envision what I want, and then I just go and start doing things, and I don't look at what I think, I look at what happens and what actions come out of it. So it's a very dynamic approach.
Thank you. So let's move very quickly to the other side of the spectrum. You are now sitting on boards of public companies. I'm going to say not breaking the ceiling, but breaking the boxes, the glass boxes that exist. Given the current situation in the IPO market, now I know in the public market and the IPO sort of strategies, we don't have a crystal ball, but what do you see happening right now? What is going on? Why is there such a downtrend in all the valuations?
It's just, it comes and it goes. That's what the IPO market's like. The window's open, the window's closed. It was closed for a long time and it's been open and really dynamic. So that's why, to me, you always focus on building value in your company. And is it is there an exit point? What does that look like? I think it's constantly evolving. So, I think that's more of an investor's question. I think I wish I'd known when I went public. We probably should have gone public 2 years later, but the bankers and the investors don't tell you that, very respectfully, because they want an exit. Where the reality is you're trying to do something and build something, and you often get advice from folks that you pay millions of dollars to, either as a return on their investment or the bankers, rather than what really makes sense for the business. And I learnt that, and because, going under that degree of scrutiny, you've got to be really clear that you're in the right time and the right place to do it. And the great thing about today, there's so many other forms of funding and approaches, and they're coming all the time. So I'm actually really optimistic for founders, and I think that's where LINQTO is really important, because it used to be this whole concept of, I really believe in building companies where shareholders, customers, employees, the community all benefit. And LINQTO is a way of doing that, because so many of my employees who left along the journey, us founders are stuck to the bitter end, they don't get to exit. But with LINQTO, these are sorts of products that are really going to change that philosophy of the Big Bang IPO, which I don't think is really, what it's really all about.
Well, that was not rehearsed. That's not in the playbook. Thank you, though.
No, but it's really true. It's really true. It's important.
Thank you. Yes, it is. Let's talk a little bit more about what we've had. We did 15, 17 podcasts over the last 3 or 4 days. And there's this huge imbalance with knowledge transference from the male-dominated environment of large companies or towards IPO companies, transference of knowledge about Web 3.0 and blockchain to the cohort of millions of women who seem to be intimidated by the sort of infrastructure of crypto, blockchain, and metaverse. How do we change this?
I wouldn't say that women are intimidated. I would say that it's sort of, if I can describe it, it's like you walk into a house of and I have a lovely, we call them Pākehā in New Zealand, white, Pākehā husband and Pākehā son. So, I love my men. But the point is, you walk into their environment like a football team, women don't feel welcome. You don't feel like you fit in. And I think this is part of the issue and this is where, and for example, for someone like me, it's never been an advantage to put my head up. I don't think the list with my name on it as the first founder CEO to take a company public only got published 18 months ago. If women, there's a whole world of women, but if you don't see it and know how to connect with it, you don't feel comfortable. And it's only sort of, I'm a warrior. There's only so many, one of the reasons why it's incredibly important is women shouldn't have to be warriors to get there, right? It should be an inclusive community. And I think that's where women like me, women who are comfortable in that world, need to start contributing to that diverse world. But also the men need to be aware that the only way we're going to really make a difference in the world is working out how to bring women in. And at the moment they don't. I was at the Startup Awards last night here at South by, and I've judged the New Zealand Tech Awards for years. I've judged the Ernst & Young Entrepreneurial Awards. 90% of the time they are all male companies, all founders, and all male boards. And when you ask the question, where are the women, they say, oh, we can't find them. And my view is, well, if you want to sleep with one, I'm sure you can.
Okay.
How pathetic is that, right?
All right. Okay, there you go. So,
What can you say to that? You
No,
can't say anything,
actually-
right?
I don't remember whom, but we had a podcast yesterday, the day before yesterday, and it was very intuitive about what happens to men and women given the publicity that they get. They either shrink or become bigger. And so look for that podcast, or we'll try and put those words into it. But I know this event is also for all of you out there. I want you to have the opportunity to ask one or two questions if we have the time, Jordan, if that's okay. One question. But as you're thinking about this question, let's remember Linda Jenkinson, Level Up Institute, $1 billion mindset. Fortunately, she will be with us at the Global Investor Conference that we're hosting in Portugal in May 16th. You're going to be leading a masterclass on the $1 billion mindset. So thank you for agreeing with that. Who has a question? One question. Make it really relevant. Go ahead.
So I have a question. So when you were building your company as a woman, did you try to blend in with the guys, or were you like standing out as like, channeling, being a woman?
Let me repeat the question. The question was, as a woman building a company, do you find that you have to blend in with the male environment, counterpart, investor sort of things, or do you retain and manage your own identity?
I absolutely am myself, and I, and I respect everyone for their own strategies of how they are out in the corporate world. But I have always brought all of me, because I've always looked at it. So my grandmother taught me how to play poker when I was 5 years old. And so I look at everything like a game, in that there's a set of rules and I just need to learn in the rules, and then I need to win. And I bring all of myself, my humor, my femininity, my cheekiness, my creativity, my intellect, my drive to win. I bring all that with it. And I really believe that, I did when I was 23 years old, and I was asked, by one of my mentors, what do I want to do in the world? And it's like, I want to make a difference, and I want to do it on a really big scale. And I came from a sheep farm in the Manawatu in New Zealand, and I was the first person to stay at school past the age of 15. My grandmother gave me flowers then, but when I went to Wharton Business School, I didn't get any flowers because they thought I'd just gone over the top, right? So I really believe that if you're going to, be on this journey, figuring out how you can be you is incredibly important, and being you. And doesn't mean that sometimes you don't have to sort of step back and throw it out there, but, I've always done that. I think it's an important part of living, right? I don't see it as working or not being me as being me. It's like, I'm me.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'd love to hear what you think is the key to the $1 billion mindset. I mean, if you could share that with us. And I just Sarah Blakely from Spanx shared the story how when she was trying to get into Nordstrom, she just called the buyer, a Netflix manages. She just kept calling until she eventually got the buyer. And the point is that everyone's like panicking, going, whoa, you got to go to all these trade shows, and you got to like network for 4 years, and then you might get an appointment with the buyer. And they're like, how do you do that? I just called her. So I guess I'm asking you from your point of view, because from New Zealand, etc. Is it the naivety that almost helped you?
Well, I wouldn't call it naivety. I'd call it, I call it, if you think you have to go through do it a certain way, you're trapped in a box. And I don't see a box. I just see opportunity, assets, things to do. So, for example, I arrived in America, and I ended up at a strategy consulting group, and we were going to write a book on the disruption of the banking industry. And the first job was to get interviews with the top banking analysts in America. And 24 hours later, we met to get an update, and everyone else were sort of researching them, and I had meetings with the six top ones lined up for that week. And they're like, well, how did you do it? And I said, well, they thought my accent was cute. I chatted to the secretaries. Secretaries are always key. And, you know, I just sort of made it happen, right? I believe, and this is sort of the $1 billion mindset, you can create anything you want to, and it followed by determined action.
Love it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So identify who you are, lean into your strengths, go for it, go for gold, build your company. Here we go.
And if you're interested in learning more, go to my website, lindajenkinson.com, and sign up, because it's a revolution.
Thank you.